Bro, you want to be in the video? Yeah? Oh, great. Okay. Hi guys, Emily and Bogie here. Last week was quite a stressful one for Emily and Bogie. I don't know, I'm talking in the third person, but it was a crazy time. I am glad that it's over. And I've been receiving so many questions about just the whole process of how I figured out Bogie was sick, to treating him, to bird illnesses in general, to what's the difference between vomiting and regurgitation. So I thought I'd just make a video about the whole process, what happened, what caused his illness, show you guys how medicating Bogie was, preventing disease and illness within birds, and signs and symptoms. So if you guys already know what happened through Bogie's Instagram, feel free to just skip ahead in the little chapter section below. So Bo, let's get into it, buddy. Buddy, he wants my phone. You want my phone with my notes? These are for me. These are for me. I was like in tears all day. My eyes are so puffy. I don't know if you can even tell. Bogie was throwing up for 2 days. Bogie's on his chop, normal, like everything's normal. I did like a bracelet making little get together with some girlfriends for Valentine's Day, and Bogie, I was like worried that he may have ingested some beads. His crop was super full. I like made fun of him on Instagram. On my story, I was like, how much did you bench press, Bogie? Your crop is so full. Meanwhile, he was sick, poor little guy. So he was acting pretty normal, but he was very puffed up, huge crop. Next day, which is today, he was throwing up again in the morning, and his crop was huge, and he was still playing with toys. He wasn't sitting on the bottom of his cage, nothing like that. But I started to get really worried. I called my typical avian vet at Point Vicente, and she wasn't in today, of course. So I was like, oh my gosh, called a few other vets. Everyone's like, we're full. And I just like broke down, started crying. And I was like, as Bogie's like throwing up on me, I finally called Culver City Access, and I was like in tears. They were like, is this an emergency? And I said, I don't know. Maybe you could talk to an exotic avian vet. This is what's going on. He's been throwing up for 2 days. His crop is very inflamed. Well, it was like decently inflamed, but he doesn't usually eat to fill his crop. Like that's an issue that I've had with him. He doesn't usually do that. So it's abnormal to have him have a big old crop for like a whole day. You know, it never went down. She talked to the avian vet, and she basically said, yeah, we consider this an emergency, like you need to come in. I just didn't want to make this seem like an emergency if it wasn't. Like I didn't want to put Bogie through more stress if I didn't need to. So I get there and they take Bogie in the back, and they wanted to hospitalize Bogie. They wanted to do basically a swab. I forget what the technical name for it is, but a crop swab to see if he had an infection. And they also wanted to do an x-ray, and there's 2 different forms of x-rays. There's this box x-ray where they don't put the bird under, and then the front facing x-ray where they extend the wings. The box x-ray sounds great, but that's more looking at bone density. It's an aerial shot x-ray of his head and back, and we're concerned about his crop. So my avian friend Nicole basically said to me, she's like, look, birds hide their illnesses very well. If you don't go through with these tests and he's even more sick in a week, you're gonna have to put him under, and then he's gonna be even weaker, and it's gonna be even more dangerous. So I was like, that totally makes sense. And so I just had to say, okay. So you guys, you just heard exactly what happened when I was sitting in traffic coming home from the vet. So basically we did x-rays. We had to sedate Bogie. That was probably one of the scariest, hardest decisions I've ever had to make while having this little guy. Sedation's super dangerous. It can be potentially fatal to birds, and luckily, since Bogie is in such good shape, he does eat a good diet. They told me basically, yeah, he has a really high chance of this being successful, but that's all the vets would give me. They basically said, look, we can't give you 100% reassurance that he's gonna come out of it alive. So that was so horrible. It was so scary, and turns out he had nothing concerning within his crop, like an ingested metal piece or plastic. There's no blockage in his crop. So when they did the gram stain, which is basically a swab of his crop, they did find huge amounts of bacteria, and that is how we figured out that he had a bacterial infection. Now, how did he get this infection? We still don't know. I have theories. I learned recently that sprouting is very dangerous. I knew that it was dangerous, but I didn't know to the extent. And I've recently found out that using apple cider vinegar while soaking your beans or seeds or nuts is super important, because that kills whatever potential dangerous bacteria that's on your food. Also, just Bogie being a ground forager, he goes around the floor and he picks everything and anything up that he can find. And in the kitchen, you know, I mean, there could be food that fell on the floor and he picks it up and eats it. So unfortunately, having a foraging bird is really tough, and that means just having to keep our floors really clean. But he could have picked something up there then. Could also have been the batch of chop I made wasn't good. Maybe I didn't rinse the vegetables off well enough. This batch of chop I had no beans, so it was just quinoa and a bunch of veggies. So yeah, maybe the sprouts I put in weren't prepared well. It's really hard to say what caused this bacterial infection, and unfortunately, we can't bubble wrap these little guys.
I asked for not. No way, Mom. I'm some kind of bubble boy.
As much as we want to. Can I bubble wrap you? No? Though we only have sneaking suspicions of what could have caused all this. We don't know for sure, which is frustrating. I love answers. I do really want to go over the signs and symptoms of when your bird could be sick. And this is a long list, just an FYI. This is why it's very important to really know your bird and be very aware of its natural, normal, typical behavior. Because the second your bird starts acting in a weird way, even if it's ever so subtle, it could mean your bird's sick, unfortunately. I have a mild case of OCD with things, and having a parrot is not good for that. So you're just like, stressed out of everything. What are you doing? Are you okay? Bogie's signs and symptoms for his crop infection were the fact that his crop was very descended and it wasn't going down in the normal time that it usually would, and he was throwing up. So I have my little list here. So puffed feathers. If your bird's feathers are abnormally puffed for a longer amount of time than they usually are, that's a symptom. So tail bobbing when breathing. That basically means that their breathing is very labored. It's very difficult for them to breathe, and you can actually tell by their tail pulsing when they're just sitting perched. Obviously right now I'm doing the influencer hand. Look at this product. Right now his tail is really nice and just calm, but if your bird's breathing is labored, it will show in the tail. Eyes half closed, excessive sleeping, throwing up, obviously, poop sticking to their vent feathers. And their vent feathers are obviously like their little, right there, their little buttholes, for lack of a better term. Poop is another really good way you could tell if your bird's feeling well. Ragged feathers, this could mean that they have mites or that they aren't feeling well enough to preen or bathe. Weight loss is a huge sign, and please have a scale. Own a scale, go buy one right now. Even if that means you don't finish watching this, go get a scale for your bird. It saved us during this whole experience because they wanted to hospitalize Bogie. I asked them what that meant. They basically said, we're gonna check his weight, make sure that he's hydrated and eating. And I could tell them, look, you guys, I think this is gonna stress Bogie out more. I'm seeing him eat and I'm weighing him to make sure he's actually eating, because birds will actually fake eating to make you think that they look okay. And then they'll puff their feathers up, so you will have no idea that they're losing weight. And if a bird's not eating or drinking, it could be a matter of hours before it's too late. Discharge or wetness around the nose. If your bird is abnormally sneezing a ton and has a lot of discharge around their nostrils, then that's definitely a sign that your bird's sick. Vocal changes. I was babysitting some conures. I could tell that the son conures squawk wasn't right. And this is before I even knew that that was a symptom, but I just had a weird vibe. I was like, this isn't right. I called them. I was like, I think we should take him to the vet. His voice doesn't sound normal. And turns out he had an infection in his throat. Super sad. He ended up not making it. And they did literally everything they possibly could to keep this conure alive. They had to administer shots themselves. They had to do breathing treatments. Sudden temperamental changes is another one, and that's just basic behavioral changes. You know, oh, my bird usually doesn't fly up there and sit there for 2 hours. That's weird. Or Bogie was like super cuddly, like abnormally cuddly. And as much as I love that, I was like, this is not normal. I wish it was. Trust me. I do. And another sign or symptom is plucked feathers. Plucked feathers doesn't necessarily only mean boredom. It can mean that your bird has a parasite or mites. So now the difference between regurgitation and throwing up or vomiting. So regurgitation is a very normal behavior. It's a very weird behavior, but within the bird world, it's very normal. It's basically when a bird brings up a small amount of food from their crop with the intention of feeding it to a loved one. If they're doing this to you, it's not good. It usually means that your bird is looking at you as more of a mate. That's a video for another time, but it's not a good thing if they're regurgitating on you and you don't want that to happen. But within a bird-bird relationship, it's normal. So a bird that is vomiting differs from a bird that is regurgitating because the vomiting is more violent and unnatural seeming. And this is still a subtlety, but if you know your bird and you look at a video of regurgitation versus vomiting, it's very clear. Birds that are vomiting, they throw up, it's very violent, they shake their head around, they're wiping it everywhere, whereas the regurgitation is very intentional and it's very like controlled and they know what they're doing. The vomiting is very like, bleh, vomit, flick it everywhere. You might find it in your cage, on their toys, on the bars, on perches. In our case, since I'm home in the mornings, I take Bogie out after he eats and he was throwing up basically on me and wiping his throw up on my person, which was gross. Vomit also smells very sour because usually they're trying to get something out of their crop that's not making them feel good. So Bogie's vomit was very sour smelling and it was not very digested. Also, if your bird is acting hormonal, he or she is more aggressive or nesting, that behavior can almost pair with the regurgitation and it would be more like, oh yeah, my bird's trying to nest and he or she's regurgitating. Bogie was not showing any other hormonal signs that he was like in a mating mind space, so it came really out of the blue. So now you guys get to see how I medicated Bogie, and he was not very happy about it. So today is Bogie's last day of antibiotics, and I just wanted to show you guys what we do because I'm better at it since it's been a week. So I have to towel him, and this is how I do it. But he'll know the second I bring this out. Yeah. Okay, Bo, come. Come. Yeah, see, Bo, I'm sorry, buddy. I know, come here. So you guys, this is why it's not good to force your bird to do anything because it really breaks trust. Obviously this is medicine, so I have to do this. So you hold them right under their jawline. And Bogie's so gentle with me, even though he hates this, he's super gentle. I can feel his little heartbeat super fast. And we take, I already measured this out, 0.04 milligrams. And I gotta make sure it goes over his tongue. But the issue is that he likes to oops, yikes, sorry, Bo. The issue is that he bites and then it gets the antibiotics on me. So that was a good one. No, I know. It's okay. No.
That's a good one.
No, that was a good one. I know, I'm sorry, buddy.
That's it.
Was that it? All right, good boy, Bogie. Good boy. Let's give you a treat. Oh, you're done. It's powder. Look at the powder on that shirt. So now one of the most important aspects of this video, how to prevent these diseases and illnesses. You could be the best parrot owner around. You could be doing everything right, making sure your house is clean, giving them a good diet, and something could still go wrong. Routine vet checkup. That's a huge one. I recommend getting a yearly physical, get some blood work done because you can compare your healthy blood work to when your bird's sick. That's what we did. And it gave me so much peace of mind. So correct diet is the next way that you could prevent disease. Just having your bird not be on a seed diet. Having your bird be on a good organic pellet is key. I have Bogie on the Bird Tricks pellet. If you do not live in America, that's the Tops pellet. My vet really wanted Bogie to start having a few Harrison pellets as well. So now I'm mixing Bird Tricks pellets and then I give him a few bits of Harrison's. Keeping your living space clean is super important, as well as your bird's living space clean. So this is definitely, if you have a foraging bird, keeping your floors clean. After you cook, there could be bits of avocado, onion, garlic around. Just making sure your counters are clean, your floors are clean. Cleaning your bird's cage weekly is super important. You don't want your bird stepping in feces and just living in a very unsanitary environment. Changing your bird's water bowl daily and washing it, as well as not keeping your chop in your bird's cage for very long. And especially if your house is warm, you know, that stuff can spoil very quickly. Keeping your eye on your parrot when it's cruising around your house is also super important. I always hear people asking me, how does Bogie not eat your plants or chew your cords? He definitely would if I didn't watch him. So when Bogie's out, I'm like definitely keeping an eye on him. I treat him kind of like a baby in that aspect. You wouldn't just leave, you know, your 1-year-old around to crawl around and stick its finger in an outlet. Using apple cider vinegar when you're sprouting sprouts is very important. And this is not something that I knew before this whole fiasco. And it is very, very important because sprouting can contain lots and lots of bacteria that can be fatal for your parrot. Using natural toys is a great way to prevent illness and disease. A lot of those rope toys with nylon ropes have been known to get or to be found within the bird's crop. So the bird will basically ingest this rope material and then it'll just stay in the crop and it will create a blockage, and it's super scary and unsafe. You don't want little bits in plastic or metal being ingested. So that's why I like to use my natural toys. Always talk about Planet Pleasures. They're the best. We have a little discount too if you want some natural toys. Another thing that would prevent disease as well is desensitization. Sounds weird, but when your bird is extremely stressed out, it actually lowers their immune system, which then can cause disease or illness. And one thing that was really great, taking Bogie to the vet, was they said he was so calm. I know that a lot of birds that don't get out, they don't get to see the world. They get so scared when anything in their environment changes. Getting your bird super desensitized is a great way to just toughen your bird up and make life easier for them. And you can do that through target training and taking your bird around. Wow, look at his hair. What happened to your hair, buddy? And lastly, the most important is weighing your bird and making sure that your bird isn't losing weight. Super important. Go get a scale. If you don't have a scale, you are dropping the ball. I hate to say it, but you are. Bo, I think that's it, right, buddy? Is there anything else we can think of? Oh, and as far as diet, washing your fruits and vegetables super well, making sure you buy as much organic as possible, and if you are giving your birds beans or other grains, to make sure you're cooking them properly. Boop. Boop. So luckily Bogie is better. Thank the good Lord Almighty. You guys, I hope this video helps. Please, like I say, if there's anything I missed, put it below. If you guys have any crazy stories, I would love to hear it. Also, people can scroll through the comments and learn for themselves. No two birds are alike. That's what's so hard about all of this. All we can do is trust our intuition, trust our gut, and stick together in this awesome, crazy bird community. Bye. Can you wave? Can you wave bye?